to the November 20th, 2023 meeting, November 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Mayor's Council. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge with respect the Indigenous nations on whose treaty and unceded territories we're fortunate to live, work, and operate. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Move, second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, approval of the October 25th, 2023 meeting minutes. It's been moved, second. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Okay, we'll begin with public delegates. There are 9 today, so I'm going to ask people to please adhere very closely to the 3-minute limit for presentations. And we'll start with Isabel Kolak. Okay, we'll move on, come back to you. Nathan Davidich. Can you mute her? Yeah, it's her.
Is this microphone okay?
Yep.
Oh,
Please
okay.
go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, chairs and member. I'm speaking about item 4.1, amendments to the rules of procedures for conduct of meetings. The specific action I want the Mayor's Council to take is to table this item to allow for proper input. As the MVRD Metro Vancouver is the father of TransLink, item 4.1 should be identical or very similar to Metro Vancouver procedure bylaw. There should be night meeting, not just day meetings. Section 8.3 should be mandated to a minimum of 1 day and 1 night meeting per calendar year. It should be stated that item 4.1 is really a temporary policy until proper changes to the governance of TransLink are implemented by the provincial government. I don't know how many of you are aware that in 1986, BC Transit and the Vancouver Regional Transit Commission were taken to the BC Supreme Court because of lack of proper public consultation. I've sent you some copies of procedure bylaws from Richmond and Fraser Valley Regional District, as well as the news article from Port Moody that limit the number of virtual meetings. Your trip to Ottawa next week is important, but as I pointed out before, your 10-year plan is not ambitious enough and would not provide the same level of transit service that is available in Montreal or Toronto. Instead of $21 billion over the next 10 years, we probably need $50 billion to just catch up on the bad decisions that were made over the last 40 years in transit in Metro Vancouver and in BC in general. So thank you very much and have a good trip to Ottawa.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Next is, Michelle Scar. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor's Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michelle Scar, and I'm a volunteer with Vision Zero Vancouver. Our goal is to completely eliminate all traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries in Metro Vancouver. This is also one of your goals, and it's outlined in the Transport 2050 Regional Transportation Strategy. I'm speaking today to remind you that reducing death and injury won't just magically happen on its own. It will require a deviation from the deadly status quo. You'll need to design people-first streets and prioritize transit over personal vehicles. This is especially the case in densely populated areas like Burnaby Heights, which is absolutely where you should route the Purple Line BRT. BRT on Hastings will calm traffic and eliminate the need for buses to swerve in and out of traffic, which will improve safety. It will have other benefits like reducing noise and pollution and helping local businesses by giving customers more transportation options. On the other hand, if you route the bus on Boundary, it will serve a couple car dealerships, and to be honest, there's much more need for rapid transit along Hastings. So last week, I had a dentist appointment in Burnaby Heights, and I wasn't the only one. There are many, many dentists up there. After the appointment and before catching the R5 to work, I took the opportunity to put up some yellow stickers for Vision Zero Vancouver, displaying the number of crashes for 3 intersections: Hastings and Willingdon, Hastings and Rosser, and Hastings and Madison, which have 41, 22, and 20 crashes a year, respectively. While I was putting the stickers up, I had some really nice conversations with locals, including a security guard and an elderly lady, who were both supportive and agreed that Hastings, as it is, isn't safe. The security guard at Rosser was telling me that he wished there was a north-south intersection signal there. Tragically, the day after I put up those stickers, a driver hit and killed a woman in that exact intersection. She was also going to a dentist appointment. My thoughts have been with her family since the tragedy. I'm really upset by the news, but I'm not surprised. On average, 5 pedestrians are hurt every day in the Lower Mainland from cars, from drivers. It typically only makes the news if it's deadly or if it disturbs traffic. We shouldn't have to lose loved ones who are just trying to get home or to the dentist or anywhere else. Please stop this unnecessary, disturbingly common violence, take some real action, and commit to your own goals. Putting the BRT along Hastings and Willingdon will help. You have a long way to zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'll ask Michael Hall to please come forward.
Good morning, Translic Mayor's Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Hall, and I'm here to speak on 1, the issue of routing options for the recently prioritized Park Royal to Metrotown BRT, and 2, the interim R2 rapid bus extension. I would like the Mayor's Council and TransLink to pursue the originally proposed route of this BRT line along Hastings through Willingdon Heights rather than using Boundary Road. I also urge the Mayor's Council to request and work with the City of Burnaby to implement all-day bus lanes to support the 2 rapid bus lines that will be enriching this neighborhood. I believe that the original Hastings Street route would be in the best interest of transit riders, residents, and businesses in Willingdon Heights, TransLink, and the City of Burnaby. Public transit, or any mean of transportation for that matter, has one purpose: to connect places that people want to go. Because of the thriving businesses and increasing density in Willingdon Heights, there are many places that people want to visit. To instead reroute the BRT line through the low-density residential and light industrial areas would greatly lessen its effectiveness by providing fewer destinations and lower ridership potential, and therefore not maximizing the return on investment of a BRT line. It should be obvious that if having to choose, a substantial transit service should serve a very popular high street and not a low-density, primarily single-family home and industrial neighborhood. To choose otherwise would be a very poor allocation of resources that many other neighborhoods and municipalities would like to have. Until BRT can be implemented, I urge TransLink and the City of Burnaby to implement all-day bus lanes on Hastings Street between Highway 1 and Willingdon Ave to support what will likely be the most highly serviced bus corridor in Metro Vancouver, with the existing R5 rapid bus and the soon-to-be extended R2. This level of service commitment deserves the best bus priority infrastructure that can be offered, as even in the off-peak hours when existing bus lanes are not in effect, the number of buses transiting the area and the number of riders aboard would be substantial. I believe that any businesses in the area actively rejecting increased transit service, whether it be 2 overlapping rapid bus lines or an in-demand BRT line, are misguided. Rerouting to Boundary Road would be analogous to the thriving town that suddenly has a highway bypass imposed on it, resulting in greatly reduced customer traffic and therefore economic activity. Concerns over removal of curbside parking spaces should pale in comparison to the potential benefit of a very high quality rapid transit line through the community with the potential to move 30,000 customers per day, many of which will be patrons of local business. Curbside space should be treated for what it is, the most valuable land the city owns, and its use should be scrutinized and capitalized on in the most effective way possible. I believe this would be to allocate it to reducing tens of thousands of vehicle trips per day and feeding local businesses with many, many more potential customers than could be provided with a few parking spaces. In the end, building good transit means connecting areas that people want to go. Anything else would be a waste of valuable resources. In this case, where people want to go is the community of Wellington Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dennis Egger.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Morning.
I'm Dennis Agar. I'm the executive director of a new nonprofit called Movement. Let me get that in the shot. We got together to ensure transit riders have a stronger and more powerful voice in the regional conversation. So we've been watching the discussion about BRT play out in the media with excitement. King George and the Burnaby North Shore corridors are going to be transformational additions to the network. There is one organization that has reservations about the concept, and that's the Burnaby Heights Merchants Association. I've had some great conversations with them, and I get that they feel this is an existential threat to their membership. But I think above all, we can agree that Burnaby Heights deserves better transit. The routes that serve the community move over 30,000 people a day, but congestion makes them really difficult to rely on. So I've been doing some research. I wanted to understand if there was any threat to the business community. I spoke with some of the merchants on the corridor, and many expressed an interest in better transit. And up until then, they hadn't really known what BRT really is. I took a look at other corridors with a similar street width from curb to curb, like the Columbus Ave BRT in Boston and the St. Clair West LRT in Toronto. Both have thriving business communities. And I also reached out to businesses along BRT corridors to see how it played out for them. I spoke with Michael McKillop, who is the executive director of Midtown Indy, who does economic development in a neighborhood in the north part of Indianapolis. He told me that not a single business closed as a result of BRT. And furthermore, he attributed $400 million of investment to the improved transit. New retailers, new residents, new office buildings. And this is the message that I want to leave you with. Sending that BRT down Boundary and First would be the worst possible outcome. Those corridors cannot be invested in the same way. And if we densify there, then we lose precious industrial land. Running the BRT on Boundary and First would also cut existing Burnaby Heights residents out of faster transit completely. Burnaby Heights businesses would be stuck with their existing parking, existing bus service, and no way to grow their customer base in the face of higher rents and taxes. And the projected 50,000 people that would ride the BRT between the North Shore, Metrotown, and the Heights, they would be diverted to shopping areas like Brentwood. New residents who are looking for a place to live where they can walk to shops. If we force the BRT to skip the Heights and send all those potential long-term customers to Brentwood, that's what would end up happening. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good job on the brand placement. Joel Gibbs.
Thank you. I'm also here to speak in support of the Willingdon-Hastings routing for the North Shore to Burnaby BRT that's proposed. Specifically, I want to talk about access. Access for residents of Burnaby coming from other areas. Metrotown, like I myself live here, and part of the reason why I don't go to the Heights very often is the time that it takes to get there with the current options. And the BRT, of course, would drastically cut those times and make it much more accessible to people that live in Metrotown. For people that would be living at the large new development that's happening at Canada Way in Willingdon, people living at Brentwood, they would all have access to the Heights much more easily, as well as people coming from the North Shore. Of course, with other routing options down Boundary, you remove all those potential people having better access to the Heights, and not just the Heights for businesses, but also Burnaby's Confederation Park, the community center and library there, and all those very valuable community facilities that exist right now. And so that access is a big point. The other one I wanted to mention is the idea of parking. The city of Burnaby owns 10 parking lots within half a block of Hastings Street through the Heights, 10 different parking lots that provide free public parking, for people that need to use them for shopping at local stores, for visiting, whatever they might be doing in that neighborhood. And so using the space that currently exists on Hastings to put in permanent all-day bus lanes would be very valuable to help move the soon-to-be two rapid bus or BRT routes going through there, as well as allowing easier movement for the multiple local routes that currently exist through that area as well. So I urge you to support that North Shore to Burnaby BRT and specifically that Hastings-Willingdon routing for better access for people that are in Burnaby, the North Shore, as well as providing access to new customers and more frequent customers for all those businesses that exist in the Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Thierry Haddad.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Thierry, and I live in South Burnaby. So I have a very Burnaby-focused approach to this. I live near Edmonds, and it takes about 20 minutes by bike to reach the quay in New Westminster. It takes about 20 minutes by train to reach Commercial Drive. But for some reason, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes by train and bus to reach Hastings. So all that to say that it's South Burnaby seems to be way better connected to Vancouver, especially South Vancouver and New West, than it is to North Burnaby. I really like going to Hastings. It's a very walkable street. It's pleasant to go around, shop, do errands. And we have nothing like that in South Burnaby. I wish we did. But when it boils down to choosing where to go between Commercial Drive, the Quay, or Hastings, it feels like the decision's being made for me in general, because it's so much easier to get to Commercial Drive and the Quay. I tend to go to those places as opposed to Hastings. What was I going to say next? Yes, I've read the comments from the Heights Merchants Association, and I agree with some of their points, but I'd like them to also take into account the fact that there's 70,000 people living in South Burnaby between Marine Drive, Boundary, Imperial, and Canada Way, and those people given access to the Heights are very likely to go shopping to Hastings versus going to Commercial Drive and the Quay, as it is now easier to get to. So that's why I'm in favor of the rapid line between Metrotown and the North Shore. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Aaron Ritchie.
Hi, I'd like to thank the Mayor's Council for letting me speak today. I'm a Burnaby resident. I currently live in the Production Way University near that station, but I've also spent time living in the Brentwood, Burnaby Heights area as well in the past. I'm against the proposed realignment of the BRT to Boundary as opposed to Willingdon for a few different reasons. For one, transit needs to go where people live, work, and visit. The Burnaby Heights neighborhood is honestly a great neighborhood. I really enjoyed living near there for the time I did. It's got a bunch of great shops, but unfortunately it's not very accessible by transit. Even though I live pretty near to a SkyTrain station, it's way quicker for me to drive as opposed to taking transit. While Metrotown is right where we are right now, is a fair amount further distance from me, but it's actually quicker on transit to get here than it would be to Burnaby Heights. And I did take transit here because it was so convenient. Diverting away from an area with jobs and homes to somewhere where, frankly, there isn't much would be a big mistake and a missed opportunity as well. BRT in the Heights area would allow the option for people to leave their car at home, reducing congestion, increasing safety, and would increase accessibility for those without cars. I'm also concerned of the steep slope at the area of Boundary just south of Hastings. I believe that would possibly reduce reliability in the winter and would increase strain on the vehicles transiting up that area if that route was chosen. While Willingdon is still a slope, but it's a lot more gradual instead. Anyways, thanks for letting me speak. I hope the right choice is made and the Willingdon alignment is kept for the BRT.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sunil Singhal.
Hello. I think I'm the last speaker. So, hello, Mayor's Council. My name is Sunil, and I currently serve as president of Force of Nature Alliance, which is a 100% volunteer-led environmental organization based in Metro Vancouver. On behalf of Force of Nature and our over 12,000 community members across Metro Vancouver, I'm here today to urge the Mayor's Council to strongly consider the Hastings-Wellington route as a viable option for the future North Shore Metrotown BRT route. Although the proposed route I'm speaking to is in Burnaby, and Burnaby's council is yet to vote on the preferred route, I'm here to speak to the larger Metro Vancouver context. We know this will provide a vital connection for the region, where the population is growing by 70,000 people per year. Our streets cannot accommodate all those residents if they end up using their own vehicles. Without a good transit alternative, we're looking at even more gridlock. This route would provide a necessary and welcome alternative to people to access the shops along Burnaby Heights instead of by personal vehicle. This is important because according to the Metro Vancouver Regional District, 40% of the region's emissions come from transportation. And of this 40%, 85% are from the fossil fuels we use to drive our 1.5 million cars and 40,000 trucks. The Hastings-Wellington route also is better aligned with the 6 strategies set out by Metro Vancouver, with one being to reduce driving through active transportation and public transit. The proposed Boundary First alternative route would bypass the Burnaby Heights entirely and provide little or no additional customers to the Heights and serve on an area with no shops or density. Speaking for myself personally, I grew up and have lived in South Burnaby for the majority of my life. I went to Marble Elementary, Moss Crop Secondary, SFU. And it's frustrating living in South Burnaby to get from South Burnaby directly to the Heights with my fiance and go for dinner to places like Chad Thai, which has great Thai food, by the way. If Metro Vancouver and the Mayor's Council want to align better with their climate targets and provide a safe and reliable alternative for how residents move in the region, then I urge you all to endorse the Hastings-Wellington route that would be the most used, which is where people want to go hang out, eat, spend their time and money, instead of the Boundary First proposed route. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And for the last time, I'll just go back to Isabel Kolick. Okay. Thank you very much. I often think sitting here that we don't hear enough about Burnaby, so I appreciate everyone who came out today. I just encourage you, I'll note that there is a process that's going to play out here. This body is not voting on anything akin to what has been articulated in this meeting, and probably not for some time. So I encourage you to participate in the process and engage with TransLink staff and your municipality on that process. Okay, with that, we'll go to report of the chair. Over the past few months, this council has seen and responded to substantial changes and challenges. Ridership continues to grow quickly, and overcrowding is now approaching record levels. Our system is full. We've learned about the full impact of new federal immigration targets, which means our region's population will grow at record rates and well in excess of what has been planned. Our system is only going to get more full. Recent provincial changes to housing policy will add even more pressure to expand transit. The structural deficit facing transit as a result of pandemic-related changes in ridership and inflation, as well as the continued and accelerating decline in fuel tax revenues, will add additional pressure. All of these challenges and changes are as big as any government agency has had to face, and I'm proud of how our group of mayors have remained united and focused on delivering high-quality transit options to everyone in our region. The mayors have done their job. We've developed the vision, put together the plan, and prioritize the projects. You saw that last week when mayors stood together to announce the first 3 BRT corridors for our region. The ball is now firmly in the court of the provincial and federal government. I am grateful to the partnership and support of the province of BC since 2020, and especially in the last couple years working with Minister Rob Fleming. Provincial support has allowed us to weather the immediate crisis of the pandemic and inflation, and we continue to work with the province on long-term solutions to return TransLink to financial sustainability. But time is running out given the reality our system faces. The federal pre-budget submission on our agenda today is an urgent call for the federal government to step up and do their part. We have a lot of work ahead of us. I'm confident if our group stays united, we'll be able to deliver what this region needs. With that, I'll ask for a motion to receive the report. Moved. Second. Comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Right. Next is amendments to the rules of procedure for the conduct of meetings. Open it up if there's any questions or comments on this. Seeing none, recommendation's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next is a report from the Joint Planning Committee on the Broadway Subway Supportive Policies Agreement. Open it up for any questions or comments to staff. Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next item is the 2024-2025 federal pre-budget submission. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Buda.
Great, thank you, Chair. You'll have received the report for this item 6.1 by email. We've posted it to the website. Apologize for it coming late. We've been working on making sure we get the recommendations of the federal government right so that they're in line with the comments, Chair, that you just made. We need to bring the federal government on board with our plans, and we've been working pretty hard on finalizing the first steps of the Access Everyone plan. So, you in that report, item 6.1, you'll see a draft budget submission for your consideration. Before I go through it very briefly, I just wanted to put it in context. And again, I think, Chair, you introduced it well. Starting back in March, and in fact, really last year when we approved the Access for Everyone plan, we launched a campaign designed to both inform the public of what the plan is, what's at stake if we're not able to move ahead with it, and then really to motivate and equip members of the public and other stakeholders and supporters to work with us to help us speak out to senior governments to ensure that they understand that we need their help, their funding, their support to deliver this plan for the benefit of the region and all of its residents and businesses. So I just wanted to situate the actual submission in that wider campaign. So I know that people, out there will ask, well, why do you need federal government support? Isn't this a regional transit agency with your own revenues? You approved your plan. Why is the federal government involved? I want to go through some of the reasons why the federal government, as per Mayor West Point and the province, but and for the purpose of this report, looking at the federal government, why it needs to be involved with and there are several pressures that our system is facing that are too big for just TransLink and the Mayor's Council on its own to deal with. The first one is transit ridership is growing very quickly. In past, we've talked about a percentage of ridership recovered since the pandemic, but we've really moved beyond that metric. There are places in the region, especially south of the Fraser, where 20% or more above 2019 ridership levels, and ridership is growing in all regions very quickly. We're in fact now the fourth or third busiest transit system amongst U.S. and Canadian cities. And just as a reminder, we're not the third or fourth largest urban area in North America. I think depending on the metrics, either 15th or 20th. We're punching way above our weight in terms of the role that transit plays in this region and the number of people that rely on it. The reality with that very fast ridership growth and the fact that we have a very heavily used system that so many people in this region, over 400,000 people in this region, depend on, is in fact we're now facing an overcrowding crisis that, as Chair West said in his remarks, the system is full. It's full now. In fact, bus overcrowding is now worse than it was in fall of 2019, which for those who were on this council at the time was actually a crisis. At the time, we had just approved the second phase of the Mayor's Council 10-year vision. We were increasing transit at the time as fast as we thought we physically could, bringing on new buses, more SkyTrain service hours as quickly as we could, and ridership growth was actually outstripping that ability for us to expand the system when we were seeing massive overcrowding. The same is happening now. And there's a couple of really clear reasons for that, and this actually really drives to why this is not just a local or regional problem, that this is something that senior governments need to work with us to address. The reality is that Metro Vancouver is growing at a record rate. But for many years, maybe even decades, right up until the mid part of last decade, this region was growing between 30 and 35,000 people a year. With new federal immigration targets that started to be ratcheted up in the mid-20-teens, so 2015, 16, 17, we started projecting growth rates closer to 35 to 50,000. In the last couple of years, we've received 70,000 new residents moving to this region. So right now, the growth that we're planning for is actually lower than the growth that we're seeing. And the growth that we're seeing is, as I said, by far and away a record. Those people are moving to this region expecting basic public utilities to be provided, as we talked about, or as Chair West talked about, and that means increasing transit service at a rate that we haven't actually ever been able to increase. And so the reality is, where does that leave us? Our system is full today. We've got record-setting population growth coming. Overcrowding is only going to get worse and substantially worse fairly quickly because this growth is happening. And unlike in 2017, 18, and 19, where we were seeing 4 to 5% ridership growth per year, at the time we were also increasing transit service as fast as we possibly could. The reality is the transit service is frozen. At the onset of the pandemic, we reduced transit service region-wide by about 4%. It's been frozen at that level since then. If you then look at service hours per capita, that number has been declining, in fact, since about 2018, 2019. And as population continues to grow and until transit service is increased, that is just going to keep declining. What that means is more and more overcrowding. In fact, as the previous slide said, overcrowding 4 or 5 times worse than it is today by 2026. New neighborhoods that have sprung up since we last made major service increases will have no access to service. And there's all sorts of areas we know, industrial parks and employment zones and entire neighborhoods that don't have either transit service at all or enough given the growth. This is the reality that we're facing. So people will ask, well, why don't you just increase transit service? Last month, we heard a report from TransLink on the structural deficit that TransLink is facing as a result of pandemic-related decreases in fare revenues and transit ridership. Inflation especially is a big one, declining fuel tax. The reality is that our system is full, and the transit funding model that we rely on running the system we've got today and then hopefully expanding it in the future isn't up to the task. These changes, some of them are mostly structural, have meant that we need a new way of funding transit in order for us to both run what we've got and expand to meet the needs. And that's, bringing back to why we need senior governments to work with us. A funding model is not something that this body on its own can make changes sufficient to meet these needs. So we have a response plan to meet these needs from higher ridership, growing population, and the rest. It's the Access for Everyone plan. I won't go through the details. I think everyone's heard these. Last week, we announced the first 3 of the 9 bus rapid transit lines in that plan that we plan to start work on right away, in fact. Another big change that's happened is actually a new pressure or an even stronger pressure on transit is the province's recently announced transit-oriented development legislation just 2 weeks ago. Of course, transit-oriented development doesn't just depend on action on the development side of the equation. It also is going to require transit and a lot more of it than we just have. So that all brings us back to the federal budget submission, which is in that report that was sent to you. There are 3 recommendations in there to bring the federal government on board to help us get the Access for Everyone plan started. Really just not even the first phase, a down payment to get us going, with the recognition that there's going to be a lot more work to do with both levels of government if we actually want to roll out the plan to the extent that it's outlined in that plan and as quickly as we can. So these the recommendations, just to summarize, and then I'll finish, is to ask the federal government to support the building of the first 3 new bus rapid transit projects. We don't have final business cases or final cost estimates for these projects. What we're asking the federal government to do is commit to work with us to deliver those projects as fast as possible, to work with us as partners, not just to wait until the project is done and then decide whether or not they would like to fund it, but to come on board as a partner, a planning partner right at the beginning. There's lots of federal interest in those projects. The second is to ensure that the Permanent Transit Fund, which they announced 2 years ago, is actually ready for us to essentially start applying to by the middle of next year so that we know how much funding we're going to get from the Permanent Transit Fund next year. So that way we can actually start buying new buses, procuring projects, starting construction planning on the projects that we need. A lot of those expenses won't start until 2026, which is when the Permanent Transit Fund is going to start delivering funding. But we need to know by middle of next year that we can access that program. The federal government has been designing this fund for 2.5 years. I know that many of them have told you, or many federal government leaders have told you need to speed up housing development. I think our message is they need to speed up the design of a funding program designed to deliver transit, so that to provide support to that new housing development. There's a few projects here that are listed are essentially shovel ready that we need to know that there's going to be federal support for, so we can get those things started. And the last is to work for the federal government to work with TransLink and the BC government on a plan to return TransLink to long-term financial sustainability. We're asking the federal government to join us in the work we've been doing with the province over the last year, in the same way the federal government just last month committed to working with the City of Toronto and the Toronto Transit Commission to do the same thing there. We think that we know our problems are as important and serious, and the outcomes as important to the country and the region here as it is in Toronto. Next steps, we're planning to go to Ottawa either next week or in January to make sure that people in Ottawa hear these messages directly. And certainly we'd encourage all of you and members of the public to let members of Parliament know why it's important for the federal government to take quick action to support transit expansion in Metro Vancouver. And we'll be doing the same work with partners and stakeholders to amplify all these messages, so the federal government's not just hearing it from you, but they're hearing it from your councils and your residents and businesses, that this is an issue that a federal government 3,000 kilometers away really needs to pay attention to and work with us to deliver. And that's my report, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Buda. Just want to reiterate a comment I made earlier in my report, because I think it lines up well with what you've presented here. We've done our job. This Mayor's Council is tasked with developing a vision, putting together a plan, and prioritizing projects. We've done our job. The ball is now firmly in the court of the provincial and federal government, and specifically to this, with respect to the federal government. As you said, we've gone to Ottawa, we're going again. We've had meetings with MPs from this region here, we've met them there, we've talked to them lots. And their comments are always very positive. This is a great plan. This would be good for the region. This is what we need. The federal budget is their opportunity to match their lofty words with action. very easy to say that the plan is good. We need them to step up, take action, fund these projects, get them delivered. That's what the region needs. Not any more nice words about the plan, but actually making the plan happen. And so I think the eyes of a lot of people from this region are going to be looking to Ottawa in this federal budget and paying attention to whether they match those words with action. So thank you for laying it out well. And thank you to all of my colleagues who I know are speaking regularly to their members of parliament and doing the work to make this happen. So thank you very much. Councillor Asmundson.
Yeah, I want to thank Mike and the staff and the Mayor's Council for the plan that we're putting forward. I think it's a very reasonable plan. I think it actually could be more, but I think we're taking a very reasonable approach. We've had the federal, provincial governments come after and say that there's not enough housing. We have to do more. And putting the onus on local governments. We can't do this alone. If they want more density, more high rises, more people into these communities, we desperately need more transit, and we need funding to do that. My question to Mr. Buda is, we had a budget update from the minister yesterday. From my gleam of it, and I maybe want staff did not seem to be very promising. In fact, there was not a lot of new information or information regarding transit funding in that budget. And my concern is whether they're the government after the next election or not, they're servicing the deficit is going to, in the next couple of years, jump up dramatically. And so will staff be taking an analysis of that update and to see what little nuggets of information that we can take out of that to help with our submissions or get an understanding where the federal government might be?
Sure. Thank you, through you, Chair. So a few things. First, the fall economic statement isn't the usual venue for making new spending commitments. I know they often highlight very strategic investments that they wish to make right away, which they did so yesterday, but it wasn't the venue that we would have anticipated new transit investments. So that's one. The second is that I know it depends on how one leaves the tea leaves in that economic statement, but one of the messages that I think that many observers took away from that economic statement was that although future deficits and debts and debt to GDP ratios are higher than they were, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they're actually very low historically in Canada and much lower than every other G7 nation. So it's possible that they're signaling that. Well, we know that there is going to be space for some very targeted spending in the budget, or we certainly expect so. So I think that we need to temper any of them, the expectation setting that the Minister of Finance made yesterday with that. It's often what fall economic statements are made for. But I think the other one is, and Councillor, you made this point in your comments, the budget submission we've got here doesn't include the full first phase of the Access for Everyone plan that we actually do need to get started on. If we did include that, the actual recommendations would be, in terms of a dollar value, an order of magnitude higher than what's here, because I think, as we've heard from many of you, we want to be pragmatic and recognize the fiscal landscape the federal government's facing. So the recommendations here actually aren't calling for new spending. These recommendations are calling on the federal government to take the spending they've already committed to in past budgets on the Permanent Transit Fund and ensure that we know we have access to them by middle of next year, when you need to start making procurement decisions around adding new bus fleet, starting work on upgrading and enlarging bus depots, which are right now fully at capacity. We just need to know that funding is going to come to us. And this is a program design issue in Ottawa. It takes them multiple years to design these programs, longer than I think many of you feel like is necessary given the urgency which you've been told you should be approving new housing. So we're not asking for new spending. We're asking them to make decisions more quickly. And then the first recommendation around supporting bus rapid transit, again, is about a new way of doing things, not spending more money, but working with us in planning those projects rather than waiting until the projects are planned to then decide whether or not they wish to support them. If we know that the federal government is ready to work with us to plan and deliver those projects, we can do so with a lot more certainty, allows the projects to be planned quicker and better. So I think the answer to your question is I think we're being very pragmatic here. The true needs that we're facing are much larger, and we're going to need to work with them and the province over the next year to come up with a new approach to how we fund transit here and in other big cities in Canada.
Well, the one disappointment was that the province stepped up, tells us now with the federal government. I sort of take that as a indication maybe of their position, but also I worry about an election coming up and delaying the implementation and stuff like that, because a lot of times prior to elections, staff and everything sort of tool down a bit, not do controversy. So but leaving that with staff. But thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Buchanan.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just have comments. Are you okay with that
absolutely.
now? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Buda, for your report and wholeheartedly support our federal budget submission and our asks. In short, I think, should we be successful and should they come to the table to be a partner with us, along with the provincial government, it will be an absolute game changer for this region. And I think we all want to be moving as efficiently as possible. Our traffic has reached a tipping point. You don't have to go very far in this region to get stuck in traffic, which we've all have happened to us. And for those who are reliant on public transportation, it's incredibly frustrating. But for too long, we haven't had that commitment in terms of permanency of funding, and we haven't had any alternatives other than people using their private vehicles. And so what we have today is really, in essence, a combination of a number of things, but really of kicking cans down the road and not having that permanent funding in place and incrementally providing the service that people in this region deserve. So I think that's why, we have a plan. And we have a plan, and it's well articulated, and it's well researched, and we want to be able to have those levels of government at the table with us. And I know myself, along with all my colleagues around this table, are going to be working as hard as we possibly can to get them to agree to this plan. And I think we are all aligned. To your report, we're seeing immigration numbers like we haven't seen, our targets that we haven't seen in decades. We are being pressed every day to deliver more and more housing at the local level. Without the infrastructure in place, it absolutely will grind this region to a halt. So I'm ready to go to Ottawa next week with my colleagues. I know Chair West is also working really hard with the provincial and the federal, as well as Vice Chair Hurley, to send that message. We are aligned. We want them at the table. We need a modernized funding model that's going to allow us to move this forward. We can't wait 2 years for them to get their ducks in a row. We have our ducks in a row. We need them at the table. Let's work collaboratively together and let's solve this problem, which we know we can solve. But we can't do it as local government on our own. So I'm very happy to support this. And I would just say one last thing. I would say that, Chair West, our work is not quite done. I think we have absolutely put together a brilliant plan, but the work is not quite done. Without sustained pressure from ourselves, our residents, our business community, it will just be that, a plan. We have to keep this on the radar, at their feet, and absolutely to your point, the ball is now in their court, but we cannot stop with the pressure at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Little.
Thank you very much, Chair. Lots of similar sentiments. I think that one of the key things that we need to see the federal government do, they've already committed to the funds for 2026 for the PTIF, the Permanent Transit Investment Fund. And we've ended up in this situation where we have a bit of a gap in funding from one tranche of funding to the next because we've been successful at achieving our projects. And so we've ended up in this spot where there's a gap where I think it would be extremely unfortunate if we had to sit on our hands and wait. I don't think Metro Vancouver can afford us to be forced into a situation where we have to sit on our hands and wait for 2 years. And so it's critically important for those funds to be released ahead of time, to be supported so that we can advance our projects in the community and make sure that we're delivering on those promises. I thought it was very well said by the chair earlier that we've done our part. And why this is so important is because the Liberal MPs in my community have been saying over and over and over again that local government and regional government sets the priority and we find ways to support it and fund it. They've said it over and over again publicly. Well, this is where the rubber hits the road. The regional government, local government have set the priorities. We've all agreed to them. We need you to get on board and support it. And so that's why it's critically important for us to get a response from the federal government on these projects.
Thank you very much for your comments. Seeing no further speakers, I'll have a motion to receive the report. All those in favor, or pardon me, the recommendations. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. All right, next item is election of chair, vice chair, and board designate. And for the purposes of chairing this item, I recommend that you ask our recording secretary and corporate secretary, Carol Lee, to act as chair. Is there a motion to do so? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
She can sit over.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I've been asked to conduct the election for the for the Mayor's Council Chair to serve from January 1 to December 31st, 2024. Just a couple of quick points. Any council member may be nominated, and the nomination must be seconded by another council member, and the nomination must be accepted by the nominated council member. If there are more than one person nominated, there will be a secret ballot. There are people who are participating online. They will vote through a poll that Gemma has created, and the people present will vote in person, and Mike and Jennifer Breeze, who I believe is here, will count the ballots and then let us know who has received the most number of votes. So I will start with the election of the chair first. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Mayor Brad West.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Mayor West, do you consent? Thank you. I'm making a second call for nominations. Third and final call for nominations. Thank you. May I have a motion to close the nominations?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. There being no further nominations, I declare Mayor West elected to the office of the Chair of the Mayor's Council by acclamation.
Thank you very much. I had a wonderful campaign speech.
Would you
I'll
like
save
to
it for
say
the future.
Okay. Mayor West, would you like to?
I think I've said enough in this meeting already, but thank you. I'm very grateful. This is very much a team effort, and I've really enjoyed working with all of you, and we've got a lot more to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now that we have a chair in place, would you like to conduct the rest? Thank you. Okay. I'll call for nominations for the vice chair, please.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Hurley.
Thank you. Second, thank you. Mayor Hurley, are you able to hear us? Mayor.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Do you accept the nomination?
I do with pleasure.
Thank you. Is there, I'm making a second call for nominations. Third and final call for nominations. May I have a motion to close the nominations, please?
Second.
Thank you. There being no further nominations, I declare Mayor Mike Hurley elected as the Mayor's Council Vice Chair by acclamation. And thank you. Mayor Hurley, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I'd just like to thank everyone for their confidence. I've enjoyed working with Chair West and with our group, who I think have done stellar work this term. And I look forward to continuing with that important work as we move forward. So thank you all.
Thank you and congratulations. And the third election is for the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation designate to the TransLink Board. I'm making a first call for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Malcolm Brody,
Second.
Director Brody.
Mayor Brody, do you accept? Thank you. I'll make a second call for nominations. Third and final call for nominations. May I have a motion to close the nominations? Thank you. I declare Mayor Malcolm Brody to the position of Mayor's Council designate to the TransLink Board of Directors by acclamation. Mayor Brody, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thanks for your support, and I'll simply say we got lots of work to do. Much of it has been outlined today, so let's get to it. Thanks.
Thank you, and I will turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Right, thank you very much, Carol. That will take us to a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All's in favor? Opposed? Carried. We will commence the closed meeting at 10:15. Thank you.